Welcome you guys into my quick time management courses. I need you to understand over here, I have a beautiful set measurement of the time management over here, which is a course 1 in 9 and 5. I need you to understand this calculation, which is a nice beautiful way to understand how you're going to really, let's say, calculate your time management in regards to 9 and 5. I need you to understand that over here we have 28 years of age, for example, and our goal is to calculate over the next 100 years how much time we're going to have. So in order for the 28-year-old person who, for example, let's say you're 28 today, you would say to equate to being 100 today, you would have to have 72 years more to equal 28 with 100. You'll understand that for a 28-year-old, you'll understand that a 28-year-old has to have another 72 years to go to turn 100, and that's going to be our calculation. I promise you that when we calculate everything, we're going to do it over 100. We're going to do it over 100 periods. We're going to calculate over 100. Alright, the whole point of this is to understand that we're going to have more time freedom, because that's what time management is. And you understand that this is a nice, beautiful way to have a whiteboard in the process while you're teaching, and that way you're going to also teach somebody the same technique. And you should understand that a person who works 15 hours a week, I realize that the person who works 15 hours a week, you have to be able to calculate your time methods like this. You have to understand that we have 52 weeks in a year, whereas we're going to times it by 72 years. Whereas that is the goal to hit 100, because our goal must be in life to be 100 years of age. So whatever your age is today, you calculate in your reference upon how young you are today. I realize my age is 28, although in my heart I'm number 1 with Jesus Christ. And that way, this is an example. You use your age difference and you do the same calculation. You go 52 times 72. I realize that the 72 I get because of the 28 number. So if you're a person who has 15 years of age, you will also make sure that this number is A5. Whereas that is much more of a nice, beautiful way to give numbers, although you're a divine being, just remember. Whereas we go 52 times 72 times 15. And the 15 is minimal wage. And you should understand the minimal wage required in Australia to work a 9 to 5 is 15 hours. Alright? Whereas that when I say alright, I mean make sure that no matter what, you understand that those people who work 15 hours a week for 72 years, you understand? Because 52 weeks in a year are going to work 6.5 years of their life in a 9 to 5. And you should understand that. I also will say that 52 weeks times 72 for those people who work 40 hours a week in something greater. I understand that I never do it for people, I do it for something greater. I realize that when I say that, you just make sure that you never do it for people. You have to understand that there are most people working 40 hours a week. Realize that it's the same calculation, or else we're just going to calculate for 40 times. We're going to do a calculation based on 40 hours a week. And as you can see, the numbers changed from 15 to 40. Realize that these people work 17.3 years in a 9 to 5 job. Realize that what the difference is, you understand that those people who work minimal wage are also the people who are working 2.6 times less than the people who are working the 40-hour work week. And you should understand that is one way to increase your time in this calendar. I realize that I also will continue this process in the next video. So guys, welcome back into this video. So this is course 2. And just to really continue from this video, is we have the 72 years. So a 28-year-old, which is a 28-year young person, because we're never going to grow older, we're going to grow younger over time, is going to have 72 years to reach the 100 years of mark. Unless they're going to have 72 years to reach the 100 years of age in terms of the mark capacity of their life. And it has to be longer than that, although we're making 100 the goal, and that is the mark point that we must reach 100, and that's the goal. Realize that what we're going to do is just we're going to continue, and you'll understand we have 72 hours minus 6.5. So since a 28-year young person will work 6.5 years in their life in the minimum wage, which is the 15 hours a week, realize that they're going to have 65.5 years of time freedom. Do you understand? Realize they're going to be people who are working 9 to 5 this long. Realize that you understand what I mean. Realize they're going to work 6.5 years of their life, while they're going to have an extra 65.5 years to work in their side hustle or whatever there is. I mean, whatever they're doing in life. Function, that's the whole point of time management. Realize that here, for example, you understand that in this example over here, you'll see 72 hours time. I realize that I'm going to minus 17.3. I realize this person has 54.7 years who is working the 40-hour work week, which is 17.3, which is 2 times, realize it's 2.6 times more than the person who's working the 6.5 year calendar. I need to understand that those people who work 6.5 years in their life through this time management calculator, I mean, this is a time technique in terms of those people who work 6.5 years from their age 28. Realize that everybody's age is different, although you will have to calculate in your time reference and how young are you today and what is your age, and relate the story in your own essence and your own ability. So this one here is more in terms of my age, and I realize that I would be working 2.6 times less than the people who work 40 hours a week. I realize that is 10.8 years of time freedom. I just made 10.8 years of time freedom away from the 9 to 5 job because I chose to work the minimum wage. I chose to work 15 hours a week rather than 14. I realized I chose to work 15 hours a week rather than 40 hours a week. I realized because of that, I have 10.8 years of time freedom more to work on myself rather than the 9 to 5 job, and 10.8 years more to travel the world and to build family and to read something, and just free time where I can teach you something in this time. I can teach you my other courses unrelated to the 9 to 5. So you understand that in my life right now, I have time freedom. I have 65.5 years. Right now, I have 65.5 years of my life is going to be time freedom. I already see that. I realize that I see the long term. I see this is a long-term calculation. You understand? I realize that I'll never ever work above 15 hours a week. I realize that you'll understand why. You understand I'll get 10.8 years of time freedom. I realize that no amount of money in the world can replace time. I promise you that once you sell your time for money, you'll never get it back. You'll never get it back. You'll never gain your time back. I promise you, although you can add time to your life by decreasing some drugs in your life, by removing drugs, you may increase your time like that. You may increase your time in other ways in terms of time and energy, and also staying away from 9 to 5 and making sure that you're getting healthier over time and eating better foods, and also making sure that your time is invested in terms of energy is going in better places along with your money. I realize although that since I do have time, you guys can recognize that whatever your age is now, you go the first calendar where I taught in the first course about what your age is, and you go your age times 52, and you go times the recommended number to hit the 100, and then you understand to go and do 15 hours a week, and then you'll times it and you'll see how long you'll work for. Although in course 3 I'll teach you how to really calculate that number. I'll see you guys in the next course. I have course 3 over here, I have course 3 over here, guys. I just make sure that no matter what, you understand that here is now a different calculation on how to get 6.5 and how to get 17.3. I realize we're going to start with 6.5 now. I realize we have 72 years times 15 hours. I have times 52 weeks. Whereas we're going to get this number over here, which is 56,160 hours. Whereas now what we're going to do is we're going to get that number, we're going to divide it by 24 hours. Why? Because this is 15 hours. I need you to make a full day. So we're going to go that number, because this number is calculated based on 15 hours. I need you now to divide it by 24 so that we can get some days over here. Whereas once we get days, whereas we're going to get this number over here. Whereas this is 2,340 days, which is divided by 24. Whereas this number is really this number in days. Whereas this is hours. Whereas this is 56,160 hours. Whereas when we go divide by 24, whereas we're going to divide this by 24 and we're going to get this in daytime, in terms of we're going to have 24 hours in every single day, and we're going to have 2340 in terms of 2,340 days from this number. And then what we do is we get the days number, we're going to divide it by 30. Why? Whereas that, so we can get the month number. Whereas once we get the once we get the month number, we're going to get 78 months. Whereas this right here, in terms of hours, is 56,160 in hours, although in months, it's 78 months. Whereas now, since we get the months, we're going to also calculate again, and we're going to go divide by 12. Why divide by 12? Because in 12 months, whereas there's 1 year. So what we're going to do, for every single time we calculate in terms of months, we're going to go divide by 12 to get a yearly percentage. And the yearly percentage is 6.5 years in 78 months. Whereas that's how I get the calculation for 6.5 years. Although you'll understand that in my next calculation, I'll just do it one more time so you understand how 17.3 works also, which is the same calculation and it's just a different number. See you guys in the next video. I say you guys are welcome into my video, although I understand that this video over here is going to teach you how to do the 40-hour mark over here, which is 72 years times 40 in terms of 28 years of age, and we're going to go times 52 weeks. Otherwise we're going to get this number, which is 149,760 hours, where the person who is working 40 hours a week is really working 149,000 hours and 760 hours. Whereas because of that, whereas they're working 2.6 times more than the person who's working minimal, whereas they're working 2.6 times more than the person who's working the minimum wage. Whereas we already have the number that the person who's working minimum wage is always going to benefit 10.8 years in the long run from the age 28. Although make sure that your number and whatever your number age, or else whatever your age is, you'll understand that it's a different calculation. Whereas now we're going to grab that 149,760 number, which is the hours recommended, into 24-hour periods, and we're going to find the days worth, which is 6,240 days. Whereas now we have to divide this number, whereas we're going to divide it by 30 days. Whereas from the 30 days mark, we're going to divide that. I promise you we're going to get 208 months. I promise you from that number, we're going to divide it by the years. And then we'll get 17.3 years. And then what I do is I make sure to go minus 6.5 equals 2.6 times. Realize that you can also do some extra calculations. You can say what the difference is between 17.3 and 6.5 is 2.6 times much more, where the person who's working 17.3 years in the making, because they're working 40 hours a week, are going to work 2.6 times more than the person who's working 6.5 years in their life. Although you understand that you have 10.8 year difference in that measurement of 2.6 times. I'll see you guys in the next video. Welcome you guys back into my 1 hour rule time management course. And what this states is I have a 1 hour rule. And because my age is 28, what I do is I have 23 hours of the day where I may choose the 1 hour rule. I'll choose to show you also in my next videos to come about my 6 p.m. rule as well. Realize that now, since you see the 23 hour rule, realize that my age is 28. Realize that what I do is over the next 72 years, I'll be 100 years of age. So my calculation now is 72. Realize that as I reach a new standpoint and I turn 29, for example, I realize that this is going to be the number 21. I'll calculate it by 21. I'll calculate it by 71. And then as I turn 30, I realize this number is going to go down to 70. And it's going to be a new time management calculation all the time. And what we're doing in time management is we're just seeking numbers to see how much time freedom do we have and how much time thinking have we saved. So in terms of my life over here, I have 72 times 23 hours in a day. Well, every single day is 365 days. I realize every single day I save 23 hours. I realize because I have a 1 hour rule that says my schedule every single day can be 23 hours indoors. I can be indoors, so I'll just write over here. I can be indoors. Otherwise, I'll just say over here, indoors. I can say indoors as it's my 1 hour rule. And I realize that I'm not right and wrong, although I understand that my 1 hour rule states I can only go outdoors into the world, anywhere, to make sure that I'm doing something inside for 23 hours of the day. I realize that 1 hour rule explains you just go to the shops and the supermarket to get your food and come back into your accommodation. And also it states go get yourself anything and you have 1 hour to do it. Well, that's the 1 hour rule. Realize why is that so important? Because as you're aging throughout life, the 1 hour rule is going to help you when you turn 80 and when you turn 90 and when you turn 95 to keep you indoors working and doing something productive. Realize you can be doing these courses when you turn 90 and when you turn 100, you can be teaching people something indoors, because guess what? When you turn 90 and 95, I realize it's much more recommended that you stay indoors and then go out and about. And you should understand to stick to the 1 hour rule all your life. Realize all your life, you must stick to the 1 hour rule. Realize now, since the 1 hour rule applies every single day, realize I can choose the 1 hour rule today. And what's that going to be like? Realize that I have 2 points of view. Although my 6 p.m. rule says I can go into the world from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and my 6 p.m. is my curfew. Realize the 6 p.m. rule is going to be coming up, although my 1 hour rule also states it's either the 6 p.m. rule or the 1 hour rule today. Realize it's much more of a nice, beautiful schedule. Realize when I have the 6 p.m. rule today, I may say tomorrow I have to go Darwin. Realize because I go Darwin, and I really have to go Darwin tomorrow, I'm in Brisbane now, I realize that I have to go and do the 6 p.m. rule, because when I go to Darwin, I realize I'll get there from 1:50. I'll get there at 1:50. In terms of the time will be 1 hour and 50 minutes. And I understand that I'll go around Darwin until 6 p.m. and then I'll come over here, because that's my 6 p.m. rule and I've already got it in place. Realize that each and every single day, what I do is I make sure that I do the scheduling in terms of my 1 hour rule or my 6 p.m. rule in sequence, and I do it one step at a time. I do it 1 day at a time. I don't know what's going to happen the day after, although I understand tomorrow it's going to be 6 p.m. rule. I can only calculate what's going to happen tomorrow by today's method. I will only plan for tomorrow for today. Whereas that today plans for the future, although for the next 72 years, I've already planned my 1 hour rule. You understand? Because every single day, I've got a new schedule, which is my 6 p.m. rule and my 1 hour rule. Whereas that means I've saved 69.95 years of my life in thinking. I never have to think for this long. you would understand that if you had no 1 hour rule, you'd be all over the place. I mean, you'd be a person who doesn't know how long to stay indoors and how long to go outdoors. And because I have a 6 p.m. rule and I have a 1 hour rule, I never have to think about it. So I look at this number as a treasure point where I may say, this is the amount of time I saved in my thinking, because I realized I saved 69.5, I realized I saved 69.95 years because I planned for this long. I planned to make sure that this long I'll be living my life in a much better fashion, because everything else, that's 72 hours, I mean, from this number, I'll show you now. I'll say 69 minus 72. I'll do this quickly. I'll say 72 minus 69.95 is 2 years. I mean, it's over here. I see 2.05 years. I see 2.5, I realize that 2.05 years of my life I can go out and about in the 72 years by sticking to the 1 hour rule. I mean, it's just a roadmap, and it's never the ideal way for you to live. Well, it's not the ideal way, although it's a benchmark. And what this 1 hour rule represents is saying, whereas today it's so cold outside and there's nothing to do outside, whereas I'll use this 1 hour rule today and I'll stay indoors for 23 hours because there's nothing else to see out there, and I'll work inside. Whereas that's all it means. And you should understand that you switch and you have two schedules. And you should have 6 p.m. rule and the 1 hour rule. And you should understand it's a nice way to go about life. I realize when it's too cold outside and there's something of a natural disaster outside, where it's, I realize that's negative, although you understand I'm not negative. I realize that you just be a person who understands that when there's something outside that's really pushing you to go inside and be indoors, you use the 1 hour rule. Realize that there is no such thing as natural disaster in my life, because I never believe in it, because those people who do attract it are the ones who are really going to those places. Although you understand that they're also the people who just may, let's say, believe in it also. I realize that I've seen natural disasters, although I stay away from it. I understand that it's very upsetting, and guess what? I'm a person who never gets upset. I'm a person who understands my 1 hour rule today is going to be for the next 72 years. I realize it's a benchmark, and what I do with my 1 hour rule every single day is I make sure that every single day I either have my 6 p.m. rule or 1 hour rule. And I calculate the time by doing 72 hours. I do 72 years. I do it times 23 hours of the day. I do it times 365. And why 365? Because 72 times 365. 72 years times 365 days times 3. I realize that you times it by 23 hours. It's going to give you a number. And as I explained in my course 3 and 2, you go through the process, although I'll do that in the next episode. I realize that this over here is just my 1 hour rule. And it just states that in any moment, I can be indoors for 23 hours for the next 72 years. And that's just 69.9 years of thinking time. And I can just say, today's my 1 hour rule. Well, I never have to think about it anymore. Realize that when you never have a 1 hour rule, I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to think about something. You're going to think what to do today. And you're going to think, how long shall I be outside? And how long shall I be inside? When you have the 1 hour rule, you're just going to stick to it. And you're going to say, today I'll be just doing 23 hours indoors, because that's my, whereas I'll be doing 23 hours indoors because that's my 1 hour rule. Whereas it's really quick. Whereas although when you have no 1 hour rule, you're going to be thinking about it. You have to understand now, since you have a plan, you can also make the 1 hour rule your friend for the next 72 years if you're a person who is 28 years of age. Although it counts for all areas of life. Realize that whatever your age is, realize that this number over here counts as the 28 number. Realize although when you turn 15, realize that it's going to be a different number. I realize that each different age as you go along in life, you're going to go 72 you're going to realize that 72 makes 100 with 28. Although if you're 30, you'll go and place this one as 70. You'll put 70 times 70, I realize you put 70 times 23 times 365 to get this number, and then you can minus it. You can minus 72 by this number, and you can find out how much can you be in the outside world, in terms of you're never in the outside world, you're living inside, although you understand how much can you go into the world and just go out and about in terms of life, and just making sure that you're never searching for outside pleasures, because that way you're going inside. I realize that happiness is from the within side. I realize that happiness is from within, and from within is happiness. I realize from that point, I realize I've shown you the 1 hour rule, and I hope you make it your friend today. I realize it's just a benchmark. I never need you to live by it, although live by it when it's necessary. You understand? Realize that you never live by this alone. Realize what you do with this is you just live with it when you realize that, hey, Danny taught me the 1 hour rule today. Realize that I've seen most of Sydney today. Realize that Sydney is boring, or maybe you went to Frankfurt, Germany, and you say that it's boring outside and it's really cold outside. Realize I'll use the 1 hour rule today, and I'll just be productive inside. Realize that you can use this in any time of your life. Realize that's what the benchmark is. Realize it's just the 1 hour rule. Realize it's just something to fall back on. Realize when something outside is traumatizing you and really making you sick, and it's outside in terms of your cold outside. I never need you to go outside. I'm never outside. I'm always inside. Although, for example, it may be hailing outside, and it may be raining all day, and it may be bad weather, and maybe you're bored and there's nothing else to do outside. Otherwise, you can always go inside, and you can always make sure that no matter what, you never go outside. You just make sure that you have the 1 hour rule. You have the 1 hour rule in place, and it's going to keep you, it's going to keep you in the guideline for when you turn 70, when you turn 80, when you turn 90, and when you turn 100. What are you going to do with the 6 p.m. rule when you're hundreds? Although you understand that you're going to be using the 1 hour rule over the long term, much more and more. Whereas when you turn 150 years of age, realize that it's going to be different to live life, and you're going to have less energy to go out and about. Although you understand that you're going to be a person who has much more wisdom in that age, although you're not getting older. You're not getting older, you're just going to be a person who has more wisdom. And that's what you need. I realize that the more wisdom you have, the younger you are. So make sure that no matter what, you build the wisdom, although the energy, realize that when you turn 100, realize that you're never going to be as quick in terms of fitness and running as you would be in terms of 100 years of age. Although, with mentally, you'll be so much better than the 28-year-old. I realize it's never about the 28-year-old. I realize it's about the 28-year young person. I realize we're not going older. I realize we're not going to go older. I realize that those people who are 100 today are so much more effective in terms of wisdom than the people who have less of an age. Although, I realize that most 28-year young people and people who have 28 years of age are way smarter than the people who have 100 years of age. I promise you it can happen. I promise you that there are many people who, let's say, have a bigger age gap on others in terms of they've lived life 4 years in terms of more. I realize they're more stupid than the ones who are 19. I realize that you can also age immaturely, and you can also age well and better than yesterday. I realize that there are many people who may be 76 years of age, although they're worse than yesterday. And I need you to be the person who is a divine being, who understands that when you turn 76, you're going to be looking healthy and vital and strong rather than fat and obese. And you should understand that 28-year young people who have 28 years of age and look fit and strong are going to be living a greater life than those people who are fat and obese at 100. And you should understand that. And you should understand to use the 1 hour rule and make it your nice, beautiful recommendation in daily life, because it's going to help you in the long run to really give you a benchmark of that one schedule that you can do. Well, thank you very much. I'll see you guys in the next video. Alright guys, what? I have a nice beautiful course over here which is going to explain the 1 hour rule calculation, and we're going to go by 28 years, or else we're going to get the number 72, and we're just continuing on, or else we're going to times the number, I apologize, or actually we're going to do 23 times 365 times 72, and we're going to get the number 60,000, or else we're going to get the number 604,440 hours, and we're going to divide by 24 hours, and we're going to get the number 25,185 days. And then what we're going to do is we're going to divide by 30 days to get the months. We're going to get the months over here. So we have 839.5 months, and we're going to divide that number by 12 months so that we get the year, or that we get the yearly income or capital or time range. And we're going to get 69.95 years of thinking time. I mean, it's much more useful to just even have a nice beautiful number like this. And then what you do is you get yourself a financial calculator. You get yourself a financial calculator. I have a financial calculator over here. I place a nice beautiful pattern where I would say 69.95 years, and I just put it there, and I see every single month how many years I saved in time. Otherwise, although I understand that since I have a nice beautiful range over here where I have a nice beautiful schedule for the rest of my life, realize that you can also make sure that you save a lot more time to make sure that you switch and adapt in between schedules so you can understand your time freedom, and so you also succeed more and more throughout time. See you guys in the next video. I have my course 6 over here, and what this explains is my other schedule, which is my 6 p.m. rule, which is my 6 p.m. curfew. I have a curfew of 6 p.m. every single day. I must be inside my accommodation before 6 p.m. because after 6 p.m. at night to 10 o'clock, I realize that from 6 p.m. to 10 o'clock in the morning, I realize that I have more than enough time to just be indoors and realize to prevent sickness, because outside it gets cold, and outside after 6 p.m. a lot of junkies and a lot of drug addicts and night stalkers and people who are egotistical run the streets, and I just stay away from them, and I just have more peace inside to stay away from criminals in life. I realize that every single day I make sure that I understand my calculation over here. Otherwise, I'll teach you in the next few courses about this one. Otherwise, although you understand that 10 a.m. is when I leave my accommodation, because I may be traveling around Australia or around the world in a hostel or in a motel or something like that, and they usually say 10 a.m. is checkout. Otherwise, although I make 10 a.m. my number right now, and I make sure that between this number, which is 10 a.m. and 6 p.m, I go find myself accommodation, and also I choose to just leave my accommodation from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m, and that way I have 8 hours of the day to just go walk around. Whereas my grandfather, who passed away, he said that you must do 8 hours sleeping, you must do 8 hours working, and you must do 8 hours walking. Or else 8 hours walking between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Whereas from that point, I get the number in terms of this number over here. Whereas I still calculate it over the long haul, and I calculate it by 100. I realize I'm more than 28, although my number today in terms of my age is 28. I'm number 1, which is in my heart. I realize that I just go, how many hours is in between here? I realize that I go up to 12 is 2, and another 6 is 8. I realize that now I'll go 8, I realize I go 8 minus 24 hours in a day, I get 16 hours. And then I go 16 hours times 72 years times, I realize I go 16 hours times 72 years times 365 days. And I get myself a beautiful number over here, which is 48.6 years of thinking. And now, since you watched the last course, I saved another 69.95 years in my 1 hour rule, and you add it together, and then you put inside your financial tracking calculator. And when you add those numbers together, it's going to give you another number in terms of how much time you saved in thinking. Because now I can also just go 6 p.m. rule or 1 hour rule. Realize that each and every single day, it's one of the two, although I pick one all the time. Realize I can never do 6 p.m. rule and then 1 hour rule in the same day. Realize it's either 6 p.m. rule today or 1 hour rule. Whereas when you're doing 1 hour rule, you'll never do the 6 p.m. rule. Although the 6 p.m. rule can shift into the 1 hour rule. I hope you understand. Realize although the 6 p.m. rule is going to say that 6 p.m. is the curfew. Whereas you can return at 3 o'clock in the evening. Whereas, you can return at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or at 5 o'clock, or you can come back at 1 o'clock. Realize that no matter what, you never come back. You just come into your accommodation anytime before 6 p.m. and between these times. Realize that if you're just doing 1 hour between this time, you may as well do the 1 hour rule. Realize that the whole point is to stay ahead of the 1 hour rule in this nice beautiful sequence. And I've actually learned something myself, and a new calculation and a new time freedom management in terms of life, where I'll also be teaching you another course based on this method alone. And because of that, you guys also have 48 years and 6 months. Realize that this number over here is just above. Realize that this number over here must be different, although you understand that no matter what, that this number is 48 years. And you just look at this number, because this number here, when it goes 48.5, means 48 and a half years, although the 6 implies there is an extra week or something like that. And you understand that in this rule over here, that is the calculation about this course over here. I'll see you guys in the next video. I'll just teach you guys how to calculate the 6 p.m. rule, and it's just how I've done it before, and just so I can recapitulate and learn myself also. And it's really 16 times 365 times 72 hours, well, that's 365 days times 72 years times 16 hours, as we did get the 8 hours in the day in terms of the 6 p.m. rule, which is behind the scenes is 16 hours of the day. You don't have to think about it. Whereas now we have 420,480 hours. Whereas when we times all this together, it's going to give us the hourly rates. Whereas from the hourly rates, we're going to go into the 24-hour rate. And we're going to go hour times 24 hours. And we're going to do 420,480 divided by 24 hours. We're going to get the daily rate. And the daily rate over here, which is 17,520 days, is going to go into divided by 30 days. And we're going to get the monthly rate. And once we get the monthly rate, which is 584, whereas this is all in terms of 28 years of age. I need you to understand that I do it by my age over here. Whereas my age is always better than yesterday. I'm always making sure I'm aging better than yesterday. I need you to understand the monthly rate is 584, and we're going to do the yearly rate. And the yearly rate is 48.6, because we're going to divide it by, in terms of the monthly rate, is going to divide it by 12 to make the yearly rate, because there's 12 months in a year. And then from this number, we get 48.6 years. And you understand that now, in the next course, I will be teaching you more about the 6 p.m. rule and how we're going to go about it. Thank you very much. See you guys in the next video. I just have a nice, beautiful continuation process with the 6 p.m. rule over here. And it's really that you understand that we have 8 hours a day when we use the 6 p.m. rule. I use my 6 p.m. rule. I only have 8 hours every single day in terms of being outside of my accommodation over here. I realize that since I do that, I'm always indoors, although you understand what I mean when I mean that I go from the outside world's accommodation into the outside world's world, and I make sure to stay inside, because that's how spiritual you get. You get spiritual for being inside, because you're really living inside your body and you're not living inside the accommodation outside of you. You have to remember that. I realize that now we have 8 hours, because before what we did was we transferred 16 hours to get a number, and it's 48 and something. I realize it's 48.6 in terms of how much time we are never going to think about the 8. I realized we're never going to think about the 6 p.m. rule for 48.6 years because we've already done it. That's because now we've saved that much time. In actuality, you need to understand there's just one idea and it's just one moment we've saved. You should understand that 50 billion years is just 1 second. You should understand you just keep going in a way that's going to do better in this day. Although you understand that now we have 8 hours every single day in the 6 p.m. rule. Or else we're going to do some numbers over here. And we're going to go times 365 days and times 72 years in terms of what your age is. Must be also a different number. Although unless you're 28, you can have the 72 years. And as you age throughout time, you may be 40 years of age, which this number is going to look 60. Whereas that you're going to put here, you're going to times these two numbers by 60 because you're going to be 40 years of age and you're not 28 years of age. So make sure that you round it up to 100. Whereas that 28 rounded up to 100 will make 72. Whereas that 72 plus 28 is 100. Although when you're 60, you'll go 60 plus 40 equals 100. So you'll put this number and make sure that this number is 60 if you are 40 years of age. Promise you, although now we have a new number, which is 24.3 years. And what I do now, as I have a new number, put it inside my financial calculator. And I say that for 24 years and 3, I realize that for 24 years, 0.3, I realize that is also 1 month. I realize that's 3 months. I realize that's 3 months there. I realize although you understand that from this number, I understand that for the next 72 years, I'll be outdoors in terms of outside of my accommodation for 24 years and 3 months by using just the 6 p.m. rule. Do you understand? I realize that is a nice, beautiful statistic. And it's also just a roadmap into how long will you be outdoors and walking about in your life. Realize that if you increase this number, you'll also make sure that from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. you can also make sure to go 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and this number will increase. Realize that from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. is 8 hours. I mean, if you're doing 11-hour days, I'm sure this number will look different and will increase. I mean, it may go to 28 hours, or else it may go to 28 years. Although if you're a person who uses 6 p.m. rule like I do, you'll understand that you'll be outdoors for this number. And it's just a roadmap to say, Danny, you'll be out and about in the world for 24 years. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's just going to give you a roadmap. And then what I do is I realize now I have a nice, beautiful idea that for 24 years of my life, I will be outdoors. And I say to myself, I realize that's more enough. I never have to be more than that outdoors. I realize that's more enough for me. I'm still living my life indoors. I realize that is just a nice, beautiful statistic to say that. I'll see you guys in the next video. I understand you guys see it's course 8 now and the previous one was course 7. I realized that I had double 6 courses before. I realized although I understand that this time we're going through the same routine and we're going to find the 8 hours in terms of this calculation over here. And we're going to say times 365 and times 72 years if you're 28 years of age. And we're going to get 210 in terms of 210,240 hours, and we're going to divide it by 24 hours. And we're going to find the monthly rate. Whereas the monthly rate, whereas that is the hourly rate, sorry. And we're going to get the hourly rate, and we're going to divide it by 30 days to get the monthly rate over here. And since we have 292 as the monthly rate, we're going to divide it by the yearly rate, which is, whereas we're going to divide it by the yearly rate, which is 12 months. We're going to get 24.3 years. And now since you have two numbers where you can say you have the other number which was 48.6 in terms of how much time you never have to think about it anymore and it still adds up. Realize that you saved that much time and you did. And now you have also another number that states this is the number that you would be doing your 6 p.m. rule out and about. I realize that since you do that, you still live inside, guys, and make sure that you're living in the body and being healthier throughout time, and that way you understand what your number is. And now I can just recollect and I can say, I'm well deserved with that number. I realize that anytime I shall increase my number, I realize I may increase it by another 3 hours or something like that. I realize that although it gives you a benchmark, I realize it gives you a benchmark of 8 hours to just go and walk about. I realize it's more than enough, guys. I realize that it's more than enough, although sometimes you may increase it and you may say, today I'll leave at 8 a.m. instead of the 6 p.m. rule. Whereas I'll leave at 8 a.m. instead of the 10 a.m. rule, which is the 6 p.m. rule. Because in the 6 p.m. rule, it's 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Although you can leave at 8 a.m. and still have your 6 p.m. rule. You understand it's just a benchmark. Whereas now I've taught you the 1 hour rule and the 6 p.m. rule based on time management and based on how I go about my life. I'll see you guys in the next video. Although you understand now that for the next 72 years, I have my 1 hour rule in place. I have my 6 p.m. rule in place, and I can choose between the both, and I can do one a day. I'll see you guys in the next video. Also, guys, we'll add the 2 hour rule, which states that we now have the 1 hour rule in place. We have the 6 p.m. rule in place. I now will say that the 2 hour rule is just to make sure that in between the 6 p.m. rule and 1 hour rule, that you at least bare minimum be outdoors in terms of life for 2 hours every single day while you're living inside. And you should understand that is called the 2 hour rule. And now, since we have a nice beautiful calculation, it's called 2 times 365 days. We're going to do a calculation for every single day, and we're going to do it by 28 in terms of 72 hours to round it off by 100, because you may be 28, although if you're a different age group, in terms of a different age today, you will make sure that number is a different number. And then you understand that you have to do this calculation yourself. You have to understand that you have to also calculate the numbers yourself to see what statistics in your area of life can work towards this nice beautiful schedule. You have to understand that now, since I multiply all of this, I have 6.16 years for the next 72 years that I'd be minimum in the outside world, just going into life, and inside on my body to just see the scenery minimum when I choose the 2 hour rule. Because now what it is really that the 2 hour rule is always in place, and when I do the 6 p.m. rule, I must also do the 2 hour rule. Do you understand? So I make sure that when I choose between my schedules, realize that the 6 p.m. rule means I must also do 2 hours minimum walking somewhere. And it's just a benchmark. As I gave you 3 schedules. I gave you the 1 hour rule, which states you must be indoors for 23 hours. And forget the 2 hour rule in the 1 hour rule, because it means be indoors for 23 hours or the 24 hours. Whereas now, when you have the 2 hour rule, you can use it in this fashion, where you can say the 2 hour rule, you can go walk around just for 2 hours and you can come back. That's the 2 hour rule too. Whereas the 2 hour rule states 6.16 years of your life, if you are 28 years of age, is going to be your number where you're just walking around. I mean, you can choose a 2 hour rule that's even separate from the 6 p.m. rule. Whereas although when you use the 6 p.m. rule, you just make sure also you apply the 2 hour rule in that, and you're saying that in the 6 p.m. rule today, I make sure no matter what, that I'm still doing 2 hours bare minimum, and I'm still going to walk around for 2 hours of the day. And then guess what? You can just come back inside. Whereas although you understand that you just be inside all your life in terms of your body and never seek outside pleasures. And you understand now, that's another schedule I just made for myself, where I understand that 6.16 years of my life is going to be bare minimum, where I have 3 schedules, and I'll be deciding this schedule here based on a nice beautiful method called the 3 rules, which is my 1 hour rule and 2 hour rule and also 6 p.m. rule. Although I understand that I can still use my 6 p.m. rule and 1 hour rule, and I understand that I also use my 6 p.m. rule to state my 2-hour rule, which states that when I use 6 p.m. rule, I also must use my 2-hour rule. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. I'll just show you again once I've shown you already, although I'll show you once again how to do the calculations to make yourself the number that you need. Although in the last course I showed you that this number was 616 and it's really supposed to be this number over here. Otherwise, although that is the whole point of rewriting your numbers and making sure that all your numbers is doing better than yesterday. And never be correct with your numbers, although make sure your numbers are better and better throughout time. Otherwise, that's the best way to be correct, and it's just to be better than yesterday all the time. Otherwise, now it's 2 days times, I realize it's 2-hour rule, which is 2 hours a day, times 365, times 72 years, in terms of the 28 years of age, in terms of my age, and your age will be different, although you may have the same age as me, and it's going to be also 52,560 hours of the 2-hour rule, and we're going to divide it by 24 hours to get yourself the hourly rate, and then we're going to get the monthly rate, which is 2,190 hours. We have the daily rate over here. We're going to make sure that no matter what, that we go from 52,560 hours, which is the hourly rate, into 24-hour periods, and we're going to divide it by 52. We're going to divide it by 24 hours to make the daily rate, which is 2,190 days, into 30-day periods to make the monthly rate, which is 73 months, and we're going to go into the dividends of 12 months. Whereas we're going to divide 73 divided by 12 months to make 6.08 years. And then what I do is I add that number into my financial calculator to say that when I choose to do this, or else when I choose to do the 2-hour rule, I will also make sure that I see over the next 72 years that I'll be going out and about for 6 years of my life. And I understand it's really nice to see that over the long period. Realize that 6 years of my life can be with the 2-hour rule. Realize that inside of my 6-hour rule. Realize that inside of my 6 p.m. rule, which is really my 8-hour rule. Although you understand that it's my 6 p.m. curfew also. You'll understand, I realize that is why I use the 6 p.m. rule. I realize I have a 6 p.m. curfew. Realize because of that, I now also realize that that number there is also 24 years. I can go around the world and just walk somewhere and reach or better. That's because of that, I now give you the calculations and also the techniques in terms of the 2-hour rule and the 1-hour rule and the 6 p.m. rule for the next lifetime of yours in terms of life, where whatever age you are, you calculate by your number over 100, because this is my calculation by my number, which is 28, and when I turn 29, it's going to be a different calculation. Although I've already calculated it, and any new calculations that I get, I'll calculate it by my age group. So my age group may be 29, whereas my age group may be 30 years of age, whereas my age group may be 31. And as I age more and more throughout life, I understand my calculation is going to be different, and everybody's calculations are different. So realize that you use the same formula, which is you use the hours by days and by years, and you understand to get yourself the daily rate and the monthly rate and the yearly rate. I promise you that's the formula. And then just add your own age, round it off, or else you round it off by 100, and that way you understand that now you have more time freedom and you have a better schedule, because time management is your scheduling, and it's really got to do with scheduling and finance. Realize that those people understand now they have 3 schedules. I promise you they're much more prepared about life than those people who have no 2-hour rule, and those people who have no 6 p.m. rule, and those people who have no 1-hour rule. I promise you those people are lost because they don't know the schedule. I'm much better, although you understand that I'm much more prepared than those people, because guess what? Tomorrow I understand that when I get to Darwin, realize it's going to be the 6 p.m. rule, and it's also going to be the 2-hour rule. Realize that I'll have 4 hours in between where I can go out and about in terms of Darwin and go check it out. I realize I get inside my accommodation and I still have my 2-hour rule in place where I say I can still go to Darwin, and inside Darwin before 6 p.m. I have 2-hour rule. I can still go sit for 2 hours of Darwin. Realize that's the whole point. Realize that's why we make this. Realize now, because you understand I have 3 schedules and you have 3 schedules now, as long as you apply it, you're always going to be more prepared than those people who have no time management skills. Whereas this is called time management, and this is why numbers with time equals finance. And the more time freedom you have, I promise you, the more finance you have. So be a better scheduling person and understand why I do this every single day, so that you understand that you'll be better in this state when you have a nice, beautiful roadmap. And now I've given you 3 roadmaps in life, and also a calculation-based timesheet where you understand how to calculate and also how to use 3 schedules. I realize you can use 3 schedules now with the timesheet, and you understand what I mean, because now you can see the numbers. You can see the numbers, you can see where it's going. Over the long period is how you calculate time management and time freedom and finance. I'm not sure, although that this is just 10 courses from many. Realize, although I'll see you guys in the next video. I have to go Darwin very soon. I have Darwin in 9 hours. I have to get some sleep, and I understand that I managed to do this whiteboard, although I never bring the whiteboard with me on the plane. I never bring my chair up there either. Whereas all I bring on the plane is my portable speaker that I do public speaking with, and also my shoulder bag. Whereas because of that, I make sure no matter what that I also increase my longevity, and I make sure to add on my portable speaker inside of my plane tickets, so that I understand I give it an extra $45, and that way I save $45 because I don't have to go and get myself another portable speaker, because that way I just bring it along with me, and that's how I save my money, and that's how you do time management, guys. You have to realize that you just make sure that you're just giving your content away in terms of freedom, and you do it for free, and that way you build some attention and do something great. I'll see you guys in the next video. I will say, guys, that also I taught you how to do time freedom in terms of the 9 to 5 rates, in terms of the 9 to 5 jobs out there, and just making sure that you understand to use that time short. I realize that you use that timesheet in daily life also, that you understand now you have 3 schedules, and you have a better basis on how to have more time freedom inside of your 9 to 5 job, which is work the minimum wage, and make sure you understand the 3 schedules with the timesheet calculations that I've done in the 10 courses here, and just make sure that you do it in your own fashion. And also in the coming courses to come, I'll make sure to teach you about finance and also more time management skills around a lot of finance and time management, where you're going to get some more freedom, and about how to use the financial calculator, and how to make sure that you have more time referencing and time management in your life, so you can become a better person who is more time free and has more wealth and health and everything. I'll see you guys in the next video.